Welcome to this week's episode on the Happiness Happens podcast. I have to say, this episode today, this conversation is a real treat for me because we have Olivia on the show today, and she's actually someone that I went to high school with and was friends with her husband when we were in high school. And we reconnected in such a random way. Our husbands are both into cars, and we went to this like random car meet. Do you remember that? And we drove these like really nice cars together for like a few hours. And then we just kind of kept in touch and we're chatting back and forth. And, I'll let you tell more of the story, Olivia, but, you were listening to my podcast and you wanted to come on the show because you're like, we need to talk about the inner child work. And that is what we're talking about today.
Yes, so I actually love Simona's podcast. It's actually one of the best way to boost your confidence and just boost you for your day, especially if you're having like a sad moment. Listening to her podcast really shows different people's experiences, and it shows you how to like continue in being in a positive atmosphere rather than just thinking negative. So I really enjoy her podcast. You guys should listen to it all.
Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate that, honestly, because that's always been the goal of the show. I want people to feel less alone. And I actually think this conversation is going to lend itself really well to that today because, especially when it comes to children and parents. I'm not a parent, so I don't know specifically, but you are a parent and you work with a lot of parents. Okay, so before I spoil the whole topic today, what we're talking about, I'm going to ask you my first question. And this is a question that I ask all of my guests when they come on the show. It's my very first question, and is, what does happiness mean to you?
So happiness to me is smiling no matter the circumstance and to find joy in the moment. So the now and not what if, the past or the future that can't explain. That's what happiness is for me.
I love that so much. And it's funny because sometimes when I ask this question, people are like, oh my goodness, like I don't even know where to begin. Like, how do you begin defining it? And what I've learned is everybody has a different definition of what happiness means to them. And also it comes from your lived experiences. It comes from the struggles that we all go through in life. And I think it also comes from like the amount of awareness that we have. What would you say?
Yes, 100%. So it's really like the experiences that you live or other people's situation when you put yourself in their shoes, because then it's like you won't make that mistake again, or you're there to help them. So it really depends. Like some people are happy by helping others and some people are happy by receiving people to help them. So it really depends on how they are.
I love that. I love that. And we could tie that back into like love languages and the way that we communicate and all that kind of stuff. But we're not going there today. Today, we are talking about your inner child and the inner child work and how that is a key component to your overall happiness. So I want to ask you, how did you tap into this inner child work? Like what made it feel super important for you? Like why this specifically?
So working with children, I've been working with kids for like 17 years and I always see the children happy. They don't have stress. They don't have anxiety. And I'm talking about children from the age of maybe 0 to 6. Yes, problems occur, but they're so quick at like, okay, you know what? This happened. I'm going to move forward. I'm going to be happy. So when you work with them, you don't really think about yourself because you're putting the child first. So at first, like I always looked at the kid, I'm like, oh, like everything to like try to make them happy. And then once I became a mom, then I realized, wow, like the inner child is so important because I wake up and the first thing I want to make sure is that my son wakes up and has a smile on his face. So then it made my job even more special. And when I work with parents, I always say, remember, like your inner child, well, your child is having it now. But now we have to make sure that the inner child continues that way. I have keys.
I love that so much.
Yeah. So I have 6 ways.
Oh, yeah. We're going to talk about them. I'm really excited because we are going to talk about them, but I do want to just kind of bounce off of what you're just saying right there. That I think that the reason why people don't focus on the inner child work is because a lot of the times people may not have the awareness that might be the thing that's missing, right? Because we hustle and bustle every single day, right? Every single day we go from work, taking care of our kids, taking care of our pets, cleaning our house, running our business, whatever it is, pick up, drop off activities, especially if you're a parent, you probably do that every single day. Like your kids probably have dance or gymnastics or soccer, all of the above, or after school care and you have to work, and like there's just so much stuff. And so when I think, especially with parents, I mean, for myself, like I get overwhelmed in my day-to-day life, and I don't have children, and I wonder sometimes, like, how do people do this? Like, how do they do both, But I think having that disconnect from your inner child can cause you a lot of chaos in your mind, because you forget how to be present. You forget how to let those little joys like roll off your back and just be in that moment.
Yes, 100%. And then the thing also is that the kids, they don't really think of what's going to happen, or let me do the same thing as yesterday. They actually live for the moment. So they're happy right away, unless like obviously something like a trauma comes in their life. But depending how the parent takes initiative of that, they could actually move forward and have a happiness moment again. But what I really do enjoy is that when you're little, you see everything as, like, for example, the teacher is the best model. She knows everything. My mom and my dad will always protect me. So you have all these set goals of positivity, like protection, the strength, the intelligent. They're always there for me, because you always have the tools when you're little. Like, something happens, I'm going to go to mom and dad because I know I can trust them. I don't know how to count 1 to 10. I'm going to go to the teacher. She'll teach me. So those type of keys bring you happiness, because you have the answer. Now, when you grow up, you have to either be a resourceful person, but then without being shy. But then the shy is where you build, and you're like, oh, I don't want to do it because I'm anxious. I'm worried what she's going to think about me. But this is when you have to tell your mind, you know what? When I was a kid, I was able to do it. I had that confidence. So let me just move forward and not think about it. Let me bring back my inner child in me.
That is so powerful. And I'm so I'm really, really, really loving this, because it's a really nice reminder to slow down and to pause. And when you have children, I mean, again, I don't have children, but when you do have children, I shouldn't say, I mean, I don't have my own children, but I have a lot of kids in my life that allow me that moment to pause, you know what I mean? And that moment to just sort of like take a breath and take a step back and be like, you know what? Like I'll even take, for example, like one of my really good friends, she has 2 sons, 2 boys, and I watch them often. I sometimes will drop them off at school for them in the mornings. They come hang out with me for a couple hours. Sometimes they'll come for dinner, and like whatever, we'll do like dinner together. We'll watch a movie, like whatever it is, whatever we're doing. And it's just so funny, because obviously, like, kids will argue, kids will bicker, and like all this, whatever. In the same breath, almost though, when these kids argue, it's for like 2.2 seconds and then they move on. It's not like this whole big drama that we make our own lives to be all the time. Because our drama, in my opinion, you tell me what you think about this, but our drama, I think, comes from this like societal conditioning of like, we should do this. We have to be this way. We have to show up this way. And like your mom's input, your dad's input, your grandma, you know what I mean? Like everyone in the world has a story about how you are and who you are. Would love your thoughts on that.
I agree with you, Simona, honestly. And it's something that, like, for kids, it's so easy for them to move on. Like, they have a friend hurt them, they don't want to be friends with them, they move on forever, and they find someone else to play with. Yet when you're older, you have a friend that hurt your feelings, and you're like, how am I going to tell her she hurt my feelings, or he hurt my feelings? How am I going to like be honest? And then you start like having like these bad thoughts and these negative thoughts. But then it's like, children are so honest, which is another quality of being happy, because if you're honest, then you move forward in being a happier person. If that friend is not for you, then it's just, you just have to move on. That's it. But it's like, again, the inner child has so much confidence, no fear. It builds like a positive atmosphere. So that's why they're always constantly happy. But when you grow up, like it's very hard. Like you said, it becomes dramatic. And then it's like you ask other people's opinions. And then sometimes you even have to go to therapy because you want to be reassured, because it can go very far. Yeah. But then you say, why do you put your mind to be that stressful and so much anxiety? It's like, like, for example, like anxiety is things that never happened yet. You have the thoughts that have become like negative. And stress is usually what you face like right now. So when you put it together, to decline it, you have to be honest with yourself and breathe through your stomach so that you achieve to not get worse in your thoughts, because your thoughts can literally control you into a negative person. And we don't want to be negative.
Mm.
We live already in a hard life. We want to try to find happiness, you know?
Exactly. Exactly. And, as you're saying that, one thing that just popped into my mind, it kind of feels like when you're out of alignment with your inner child, you are lacking self-trust, I think, because if you look at a small kid who has no problem saying, I think it's kind of twofold, because I think too, as we get older, we develop like way more empathy for people and understanding of how our emotions or what we say, what we don't say, how we approach a situation, how we communicate makes a difference in people's lives. You know what I mean? Like, even if you're having a hard conversation, when you get older, you have the awareness of like, I'm not going to maybe say it so bluntly. Maybe I'll say it in a bit of a kinder way, and still, how do I explain? Like, and still get your point across and have that boundary, but doing it in like a kind, firm way instead of doing it in a way that's like, let me just say whatever I want to say. And I think sometimes, kids will say whatever they want to say, however they want to say it. Like, how many times do you think, like, for example, like the amount of times where like my friends' kids, they'll be like, Simona, how old are you? And I'm like, I love when people guess my age because they always guess a different age. And they'll say, Simona, how old are you? And I'm like, you tell me, how old do you think I am? And they're like, 45. I'm like, no, close, not close. I'm only 30, 31. But anyway, but it's just so funny. And then, they're just more blunt in that way, in a good way, because they don't have the extra awareness or whatever. And like, I think it works when you're young, but I kind of feel like it doesn't really work if you don't learn how to like
Control it, because then it's
adapt. Does that make any sense?
no, and you're totally right. Like, sometimes you have to keep it within and not say anything, but sometimes you have that courage that brings you to being honest. Now, kids, they think 30 is like you're old and you're ugly, but then once they hit 30, they're like,
It's
why
so
did I
funny.
think that? You know?
I know. I actually think about that often. I'm like, oh my goodness, I used to think 30 was so old. And now I'm like, here I am. And I'm like, oh my God, I feel like I'm just getting started. So, okay, I want to ask you, because I want to set the tone a little bit for these 6 ways that you have to embrace your inner child. And I don't really go into like, especially when I do interviews like this on this podcast, I just love when they're regular conversations. And so, I mean, I know you and I know some of your journey and your story of how you've gotten into this work. So now you are working with parents and you're working with children, right? And you're
Yes.
helping them through different ways, different tools, different modalities, whatever you want to call it, access their inner child and be a little bit more present in their lives. And
Yes.
also, you are a postpartum doula as well.
Yes, I am. Yes. So I
Amazing.
really focus on the parent and the child. So when it comes to child, I try to find activities for them that will get them to develop their stage of learning. And the parent will come to me and say, for example, I don't know what my 2 years old likes. So they have anxiety,
Mm,
start being very stressed about the comments. So I have to like let them know that this is normal at the age of 2. These are the type of things you're going to do. So I calm the atmosphere a little bit more down. And they kind of actually play with their kids, which is great. They get to communicate with other parents that are there that either they go to the same problems as them, or they go through the same things. And it becomes like, I see a lot of mom come in with a face of like very sad and very like not
mm,
comfortable, and they usually leave the place with a smile on their face. And not only do they get a smile, the
hmm,
child gets a smile, and then they come back to our center, which is great. And then the
mhm,
postpartum doula part, I help postpartum parents that just gave birth, usually the ones that gave birth for the first time because they're new to it. And I help them, I encourage them, I help them educate them on what will happen in the cycle of the baby from 0 to 1 year. So they're well prepared. Because the thing is, postpartum parents sometimes keep it inside and they don't actually express how they feel.
mm.
In fact, they don't know how they feel because they go through so much emotion. Some that go through postpartum.
Right.
And the sad part is, postpartum doesn't really end. It's just the way you control it, the way you bring your thoughts. That's why they
Right.
say a woman becomes more wise once they have children. I don't know if you ever heard that expression.
No, I never have.
Yeah, so they become more wise because you kind of forget yourself. You kind of just want, oh, the baby's crying. What's wrong? Oh, the baby's doing this. I have to do this. Oh, no, my husband needs to do this. And it's like you forget yourself. So then you're in panic that you actually forget to breathe, to sleep, to go to the bathroom, to have your coffee, that you end up having it cold. There's so many things that happen. So these centers,
You're really not encouraging me to have children right now, Olivia.
no, but it doesn't happen for everyone.
I'm just kidding.
I think you prepare yourself mentally. But these centers actually help the parents. So it helps a lot of moms as well, because it helps moms realize that they're not the only ones that go through these things, like there's help out there, especially like in the GTA, since I live in Ontario and in Toronto, there's so many help out there. So you go to Family Resource Center, you're stressed because you didn't find a pediatric. You go to Early On, or a French one, On y va. You ask the educator that is there as the family support worker. She will lead you to it. A nutritionist. You need a doula. For example, I'm a qualified doula, so I help them. You need a person that will help give massage to your baby. Well, somebody in the center is qualified for it. There's so many resources, so it's a lot that weights down off the mother's shoulder and the father's shoulder, obviously. But it's the best thing. And having a kid is the best thing in your life. I'm not trying to say don't have children, because it's actually the best thing in your life, and you'll find happiness. But what I'm trying to say is finding the right resources will also lead you to have great happiness. Because yes, you can be sad one day, but you can fix it. You just have to find the resource. You got to push yourself. Things like that. I hope I didn't discourage you.
That's really hard to do, though.
Yes.
No. I was just going to say that's really hard to do. And it's hard to do because, it's easy to say, like, you have to pull yourself out of that spot. But it's like sometimes, and like you see this, I've seen it in my friends, like all kinds of stuff. It's like you can be in that place, and like also nothing that anybody else says to you will make a difference. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. What do you do then?
Sometimes strangers are the ones that help you, not the people that know who you used to. So like, that's why I'm saying, if you go to a family resource center where other moms, or even if you want a one-on-one, you talk to the family supports worker that's the educator in the program, they can actually help you, because they're there to guide you and the child. So it's like sometimes the strangers are the ones that help you the most. And in fact, I do encourage that people that are doing their first pregnancy to get a doula, because they are beyond amazing, especially with giving you confidence. And they always remind you, think of now, think of your enjoyment. Like, for example, like the ones that are getting second babies and they're pregnant, they're worried that they're not going to love the first baby as much as they're going to love their second. I mean, they're going to love they're going to like the second less than the first one. But like a doula will tell them, think about now, enjoy your pregnancy now. Like, this is what happened in your old pregnancy is different from this one. It's always in the now. So like the thoughts like change, like it's always different. So the resource is what's key. And especially like the government funds these things, like the Early On, the On y va centers, the government funds it. Use them. Like, don't stay at home, or don't go take 1 hour walk outside because you think that's the fresh air is important, which it is. But if you're an extroverted person, I recommend you 100% to go to the Early Ons and the On y va, because that's what's going to get you out of who you used to be,
That's such a good point. I really like that. That's really key. I think that, I mean, I know for myself, like if I ever do have children in my life, like I for sure want to doula, for sure, 100%. It feels like a very like spiritual type of connection. Do you know what I mean? It just feels like it brings you back down to like that present moment. And nothing against like traditional doctors, like, you need to have doctors and everyone needs to have their role in society, everything, right? You need to have all of the options. But I feel like, it can be so clinical when you go to a doctor, especially if you're fearful and if you have anxieties about, maybe you've had 6 miscarriages, you know what I mean? Like maybe you've had all these kinds of things happening beforehand and you have so much anxiety and so much fear as you are, in this current pregnancy that you're, you know what I mean? And like, that's okay to feel that. And also you need to get yourself the help in order to be able to work through that, because those anxieties are so real. I know people who are in these situations and it's so difficult to watch because it's like sometimes you're right. Like you need someone else on the outside to be able to look inwards and be like, listen, like, are you okay? You know, like I have some friends that like I'm good friends with them, but like, you know, we don't talk every single day, whatever, but they'll reach out and they'll check in on me and be like, how are you? And they have kids, like one of my friends, this is a story for you. One of my friends just had her second baby and she reached out to me and she was like, hi, love, you know, I hope you're doing okay. I hope you're well, you know, whatever. And then I'm like, it's nice that you checked in on me, but like, you're the one who just had the baby. Like, but are you okay? And then she wasn't okay. You know what I mean? And then so I just did the best I could to try and help her. You know, can I bring you anything? Can I come? She lives like an hour away. Can I come and visit? Can I, you know what I mean? Whatever. What can I do to help make this time a little bit easier? It's just kindness, I think.
No, it is. And kindness does everything. And you should tell her to go to an early on center. She'd be so happy because her child
I
plays
actually
how
should.
she communicates with other people. It's honestly one of the best things for moms to get through a lot of the things they're going through. And the amount of resource, like you could be going, let's say you're a parent going to an early on center and you're looking for an optometry, for example. The person that's beside you, that the mom that came, is an optometry. You know what I mean? Like she's an optometrist, right? But you'd be surprised on the people you meet. Like it's just like everything happens for a reason. The moment that you're in, you know, you can find all these keys, but it is hard. You know what I mean? It is hard to get out of your comfort zone. But this is where you bring in, like, when I was a child, I was able to do it. Let me do it because I can face all things, you know? I can face all things that gives me strength, you know?
Exactly. And it's like, you know, you have faced and gone through an experience and made it through every single hard day that you have ever had. And so I think when we remind ourselves that we actually do have a lot of resilience within ourselves, you know, it can take you out of the story that you're playing in your mind that may not even be true, you know? And so, okay, let's talk a little bit about these 6 key ways to tap back into your inner child, because I think this is going to be really helpful for our listener right now.
Yes, for sure. So the 6 ways to embrace your inner child. Well, one, we all know kids dance. So sometimes if you just put your music and you start dancing, you forget about your anxiety, your negative thoughts, because you're so into dancing. Yeah, I know getting into the groove, it's hard, but dancing truly helps. Second one would be being creative. So if you like to draw and that calms you down, draw. If you like to, let's say, read a Kindle, you read your Kindle, but then you highlight and you're being creative in revisiting your words in a different sentence while you highlight your sentence in Kindle. Being creative in other ways, like you go outside, you're being creative by taking all the recycle and putting it in the garbage because we don't see that often except on Earth Day. So things that will make you creative, you know, and think different outside the box. Another thing is take up a hobby. So that's activities that will keep you busy. So I know that, for example, when you just have a baby, you know, you want to lose your weight. So you try to maybe work out as a hobby. Now, if that doesn't work and you want to take it slow, go for swimming classes with your baby. So you kind of get best of both worlds. You kind of work out a little bit, not too much, but like at least it gets you to do a hobby with your child. If you're just focused, like, I just want to make my child happy. But yes, you do need to make yourself happy. So you guys create a hobby together. The fourth one would be true to yourself. That's really important. And I'm going to say this 100 times. Be honest with yourself. And something that I always tell myself when it comes to be true to yourself, don't let your brain control you. In fact, control your brain. Because the moment you control your brain, that's when you're true to yourself. Because you're actually telling your brain what to do and not letting the brain control you by you can't do it. You know what I mean? And kids are like that. They're the ones that control their brain. If they want to go get that water bottle and throw it on the floor, oh, they will, because they're true to themselves and they control their own brains. And this is what we need to do. We need to bring back our inner child. Another thing that could be is riding a bike, a small toy, for example. When you go on the stroller walk, that helps, for example, or even a walk, or even riding your bike. You know what I mean? Things like that. And then the last thing would be very important to have a play date. So try to meet other, let's say, I'm talking like parents wise. So parents, find mom friends or things like that, because play dates are very important. Now, if you have a husband, it's very important to go on dates, not one date per month, but maybe try to do 2 dates per month, even if it's eating popcorn, and watching a movie while the baby's sleeping. But it's very important to keep that, because that's going to embrace your happiness, but also bring back where, as an inner child, where you find the little things that make you happy. You know what I mean? Like playing with your mom, for example. And families are very important too. If you're close to your family, you make sure that you go and visit them, because they'll be there for you and you're there for them, and friends and other kids and stuff like that. And those are usually my 6 ways to embrace my inner child.
I love that. And what would you say to someone if they're like, okay, this sounds really great, but I don't have the time?
You know what? Unfortunately, what I say, I know it's sad, but I always find that you have time. So let's say like you have 10 minutes and just reading something that's going to be positive, do it. Listen to Simona's podcast on the way to work. You know what I mean? Those little things you can catch up on. Yeah, it's hard to do those 6 ways to embrace your inner child. But let's say you're in the car, you're listening to music. You could just dance. Who cares what the surrounding looks like? At least that brings back something in you and makes you move your body, rather than always have those thoughts in your brain. It's always like, it's not easy to do, but it's something that you also want to be healthy, and you want to grow knowing that you're not like growing into a negative person. You want to grow into, I'm going to be positive no matter what trauma happens in my life, because there are obviously going to be trauma in your life, but you have to remember that, again, you're the one constructing your brain. So the more trauma that you let in and that you're not able to heal the trauma, then that's on you to try to get resource, to try to help and repeat yourself until you're like, you know what, I'm done talking about this topic anymore. Like for example, because I'm talking about postpartum parents, if they know they're going to have a second child, I recommend that they follow a therapy through their pregnancy and then after their pregnancy, because the therapist can be like, okay, well, you were like this prior to your first birth, and now your second birth is going to be different because we're going to work on it now. So yes, that's working. You're working on like getting better skills, and then you bring back your inner child, and you want to focus more on like, okay, let me breathe. Let me be true to myself. Let me go ride a bike,
I love that. And, I think too that you can do these things even if you don't have children. You know what I mean? So if you're listening to this right now and you don't have kids, maybe you have a dog, maybe you don't, maybe you have just, it's just you and, you're just enjoying your life and you're going through it and you're like loving it. You can do these things and find those like little moments of joy and like that connection to your inner child in so many ways. Like for myself, for example, every time I walk my dog in the morning, I walk him through this park that's in our neighborhood. I pretty much always stop almost every single morning. I'll stop and I'll just swing on the swing for like 5 minutes. People probably think I'm absolutely nuts. Like they're like, what is this woman doing sitting by herself, swinging on the swing? But it just brings like, it's like a pattern interrupt. You know what I mean? It just like disrupts your day and you're doing something different. And it makes me smile. You know what I mean? And then I'll get off. I throw the stick around for my dog for a little bit and then that's it. You know what I mean? But if we're always so worried about rushing, say that again?
And you bring your inner child in because that's something that you used to like when you were young.
Exactly. If we're so concerned all the time about just making it to the next meeting where the like work, or you're going to be late for this, or you got to drop this off and pick this up or whatever, if that's the only joy that we do every single day, it's no wonder people are not living a life that feels authentically happy to them, because those moments of joy are missing.
It is. And like always, like I know like routine is it's key, but sometimes just doing something off of your routine can also build a better character in your life, And like, for example, like
I love that.
Children love playing in the dirt, for example. And so to bring the inner child, people that love gardening, well, that brings back the inner child where the kid loves to be in the dirt, but we're going to bring it back and we're going to do gardening because that's very relaxing. That's just like an example I'm trying to explain, because kids, for example, love the sensory activities. Well, us human like it too, but in different ways. But that will give us like our mind to not think, okay, you know what? I'm not going to focus on the bad. I'm going to focus on the good. I'm going to go and I'm going to go gardening because that helps. Or I'm just going to go for
Mm-hmm.
a walk and look at the plants, things like
Mm-hmm.
that.
Or like literally put your hands in the dirt or like skip the rocks or you know what I mean? Like, those like sensory bins, like the sensory bins that they have for kids, like with all the toys and like this and whatever. Like, I like that. I'm like, let me play in it. I want to play in it, And it's just like we put a condition around, well, you're this age. It's not, you shouldn't do X, Y, and Z because you're older. But it's just like, you know what? Forget it. Like, do what makes you happy. Like, do what you want to do. Like, if you have like the urge or the desire to do something that feels different than you do every day, why not? Why would you not?
Of course, like jump on a puddle, like it's raining outside, go jump on a puddle. Like it's fun. Like, yes, get wet, but like
Exactly.
it's just that moment brings the happiness. Like that one moment that you're jumping in the puddle,
Exactly.
you're like, yay, I'm doing it, like I don't care about the world, I'm just doing it. Or like some people like put their
Exactly.
window down and just yell and say like crazy things, but that moment they're happy, like like it's crazy.
Exactly. Even like you jump in the puddle, you will literally get dry after. That's the crazy part. Like,
Yeah.
you can go inside and change your socks. Like, you can change your clothing. You will be fine. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, but then I got to go here. I got to do this. Da, da, da. What are all these like stories, all these excuses, all these reasons to like not just be
Exactly.
in the present moment? It's
Yeah.
crazy.
And another thing that's so important, hug more. Like literally when
Mm.
you hug someone, you're just happy. Like you're giving yourself to like, you're hugging, you're giving love, you're showing careness. Like hugging someone can actually bring a smile on their face. How many times do you see kids hugging people and it's just like, oh, thank you for hugging me. But
Mm-hmm.
like especially elders, they look for that, they look for
Yeah.
people to hug them, or even moms, like they want to be reassured they're good moms, and a hug will really put a smile on their face, you know?
Mm-hmm. I love that. Oh, this is so amazing. I could talk to you forever, honestly, but I want to know. Okay, I have a couple more questions for you. My first question is, where can our listener find you, connect with you, and maybe some resources? We're going to put all the links in the show notes, but if there's anything specific that you want to call out, please do.
So if you guys want to come visit me, I am in Halton region. So I'm in Oakville, Milton, and Georgetown. I do the French early on, which is called On y va. So if you guys want resource there, I can help you. And I can help a lot of like if they're pregnant, if they're postpartum and they just want to call our centers, they can definitely ask for me. I'll help them. For the ones that are just English speakers, well, they can reach out to me on my Instagram. It's called Chez Madame Olivia. If they're looking for a doula, I can do that for them. Or they can go to English early on. It's usually anywhere in Ontario, so it's not hard to find. The On y va in French, it's not hard to find, but it's not as known as the English one. Early on is more big than
Of
the
course.
On y va. Of course, yeah. But we still have On y va, which is great.
The French language always gets shafted on the side.
Yeah, so I
We
have to
know this from growing up French. We know.
yeah, we're a small community somehow, but yet big. It's very silly. And yeah, so they can reach me on Instagram for sure. It's Chez Madame Olivia. And I actually do more activities for the kids. So if you're a mom or a dad and you need activity ideas, definitely my page. I'll definitely help you out. And I'm someone who answers fast. So if you have any questions, definitely ask me. And follow me.
Amazing. Yes, go give her a follow. I love this so much. Olivia, thank you so much. I have one more question for you, and it is a question I have been asking for 3 years on this podcast. I never really get the same answer, sometimes a little bit, but they're never exactly the same. But what is one way that our listener could create a little more happiness in their day every day starting today?
One, we learn by our mistakes, just like children learn
Hmm,
by their mistakes. So don't feel bad about it. Just like learn from it, move forward, dance, have fun, and that's how you move on, honestly.
I love that. Amazing. Thank you so much for joining me here today.
And thank you for having me.
You're welcome. This was so much fun. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode on the Happiness Happens podcast today. I hope you loved this one as much as I did, and connect with us. Let us know you're listening. Let us know what you love. And yeah, reach out to us, send us a message on Instagram, screenshot this if you're listening, and share it to your stories. I always love to see that. I hope you have a lovely day. Remember that happiness happens when you're least expecting it.